Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm back with another edition of Rudy's Common Sense, and with someone who is an all-time favorite, really an exceptional patriot. And I know that your word is used too much now, but she fills all the categories. Served in the United States Marine Corps with great distinction. Served the United States government as an employee of the United States, a civilian employee. Served in what was one of the few remaining newspapers that is allowed to have that distinction of being a First Amendment dedicated newspaper. Very, very few left. Not newspaper, but a television station and provider of information. And an intrepid and courageous investigator whose concern for the truth in her country exceeds her worry about herself. And she's very young. Not very young, but young. Very young for someone who, campaigned first for Abraham Lincoln. So this is Christina Bobb. Christina, how are you?
Great. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Well, it's a great pleasure to have you on the podcast. So Christina, let's so that we set everything. And really what I'd like to talk to today is a case that, my goodness, these things come up. They're very, very big. Then they go in the background, then they become big again. I want to talk about the raid a little because it was such a startling event in American history in many ways that I don't think we have properly described it. But tell us we'll just go back a little bit, your present position from which you would know about this.
Well, currently I'm an attorney with President Trump's campaign for 2024. At the time of the raid, I was an attorney at Save America. Of course, he's announced his presidency since then, so there's been a little bit of shuffling, his candidacy for presidency. So at the time I was working as an attorney for Save America, and I am located here in Jupiter, Florida, which is about 30 minutes from Mar-a-Lago. And President Trump was up in New York at the time. He splits his time, and he was in New Jersey. And they didn't really have many people down here. The club closes for the summer. This was August. And so I was one of the few employees in the area. So they wanted some legal presence on site. And I was not aware, of the raid or anything. Of course, they don't typically tip their hand on that. So I received a phone call and they said, "Hey, can you get down to Mar-a-Lago and, be the legal representation there?" So I did.
Now previously, just give us a quick background. You went to college, 2 master's degrees, a law degree. Just tell us about that.
Sure. So I graduated from Arizona State University. I went to law school at California Western School of Law in San Diego. I got my master's in business at San Diego State. And then I got my LLM, which is a master's in law from Georgetown Law Center in Washington, D.C. That's in national security law. And I served in the United States Marine Corps. I was a judge advocate, a defense counsel. I did operational law. I served a tour in Afghanistan as well as Germany. And then I joined the Trump administration at the Department of Homeland Security, where I was the executive secretary. And I worked under Kirstjen Nielsen, Kevin McAleenan, and Chad Wolf.
And then you left and went to work in another part of your career, which there have been several very distinguished parts, which would be as an investigative reporter and journalist, correct?
Yeah. So that was kind of a fun detour, I guess. I'm not sure what to call it because I, had a legal career my whole career. And then I thought, what the heck, let's try journalism. COVID had just hit. I had just left the administration and I didn't really know, which direction I was going to go. And so while COVID was going on, I thought, hey, let's try One America News. I thought they were a great news network and, very patriotic. And I was in San Diego because I'd gone home for COVID. And yeah, I started working for them. And that was a blur of 2 years, lots happening during that time. And then I got connected with President Trump and he asked me to join his team. So I transitioned again to President Trump's team.
So tell us, for those listeners who vaguely remember exactly what the dispute is. It really begins and is a common, if not dispute, confusion and discussion between the government and any president leaving over.
Right.
And believe it or not, I had some experience with this in my own papers as mayor. of which there aren't as many, but there are a lot, and they're important. Who keeps possession of them? Who organizes them? So the president was going to leave the White House, and he took certain numbers of papers with him that he either wanted to work on or reorganize, or in Obama's case, he took them with him to digitize so that he could put them in a more orderly way. Frankly, I did the same thing. I mean, the difference is I digitized mine. He's never digitized his, but that's a small point. But maybe not. We'll see. But the president took these papers with him. Probably until were you aware of this when it happened? I wasn't. Were you aware of this?
No, I was still a reporter at the time. I wasn't working for him, so no, I wasn't aware. But I am aware that it's standard operating procedure for presidents to take information with them. I mean, that's kind of fairly well known. So no, I don't know the details behind what he took and when and all of that, but I think it's pretty standard.
No, I've gone through it myself. I've read about it myself. I remember disputes about it vaguely. When did you first become aware that this was some kind of issue or some action item that was still on the board to be completed?
Well, they had asked me to be the custodian of records, and so I joined the June 3rd meeting, that I've talked fairly extensively about. So that was kind of the first and only indication of any involvement that I had. The legal team handling this for the president is based in Washington, D.C. I'm not a part of it. I wasn't a part of it then, and I'm not a part of it now. But they needed someone who wasn't a part of it to get involved. So I had a very, very limited role in that. And then, of course, the actual raid on August 8th, because they were all up in D.C. So I came back for that. I made another appearance, but that's really it. The rest of it has been handled by the folks in Washington, D.C. So my knowledge really is limited basically to the raid.
Are you allowed to talk about some parts of it?
I'd rather not talk about the June 3rd meeting, just because I know they're still investigating and doing stuff, but anything else I'm happy to discuss.
But so can you tell us between June 3rd, which is reported everywhere, and if you can't answer this, don't, but it's reported everywhere as pretty much a standard meeting, civil meeting of lawyers, where they came out of it with agreement.
Right. Well, yes, that's true. I believe that there was some discussion leading up to that by the Washington, D.C. team with the Department of Justice, and they came down to Mar-a-Lago to retrieve some documents that, I hadn't seen them, but I was present for them handing them over. And from that moment, after that meeting occurred, I had no further discussion with anybody on the topic. I was not aware if there were continued discussions or not until August 8th, when I got the call that said, they're raiding Mar-a-Lago. So it was quite surprising for me to go from what appeared to be a very, collegial, professional meeting where I thought everybody was getting along to suddenly they're raiding the place. So, it was a bit shocking for me.
So between the 3rd and the 8th, there was one visit that took place to Mar-a-Lago by the government team?
That's my understanding, yes.
You were not present for that?
I was present at the June 3rd meeting, yes. I was not present for anything between June 3rd and August 8th. And
how were you aware of a meeting in between? Just heard about it?
No, I don't think there was a meeting in between. I mean, if there was, I don't know about it.
Okay. I had thought they had sent someone to pick up some documents between the 3rd and the 8th.
That was the June 3rd meeting. Yeah.
I see. And they did pick up documents and walked away with them. That's
correct. Yeah.
All's quiet from your point of view now, right?
Right.
And what happens on June 8th?
I get a call that says, "Hey, the FBI is at Mar-a-Lago and we need someone to run down there. Can you get there quickly?" So of course I hopped in my car and was there in about 30 minutes to kind of observe what I could observe. They didn't let me participate or follow them or really have any involvement. So I was limited on what I could actually see. But I saw the raid. I interacted with the agents, and they did what they do. And then 9 hours later, they gave me a receipt that the inventory, supposedly the inventory, but it didn't have any usable information on it. So the attorneys then had to go back and ask for more clarifying information. But I did receive the original inventory.
So you were called while the raid presumably was already in progress.
It was, yes. I got there after they arrived.
So they arrived, served their papers, went in, started, and then someone at Mar-a-Lago called you?
Yes.
And then so how long into the raid did you get there? An hour or so?
I don't know exactly when it started, but from the looks of things, it looked like it had been going on for about an hour and a half, maybe. I would assume they got there around 9:30, and I got there around 10:30.
And did you ask to accompany them?
I did. Yes, I asked, and they adamantly said no. I asked several different people, several different ways, and I was turned down very expressly every single time. So I followed their direction. I pushed back as much as I could, but ultimately obeyed their instructions and waited for them to finish.
And the purpose of following them around would have been to help them identify things? Is that the way you?
Well, I would have wanted to just see what they're doing, make sure that they're doing everything appropriately. And if they needed anything, at one point they said, "Hey, the door's locked. Can you get someone to open it for us?" And I said, "Sure, let me go down there and tell the staff." And they said, "No, you can't go down there." And I said, "Well, then how do you want me to tell the staff?" And they said, "Well, you can't." And I said, "Well, then why are you asking me?" And they're like, "Well, we'll just bust it open." I was like, "Well, this is a pointless conversation." So they went ahead and did whatever they wanted to do. And I couldn't really do anything about it because they wouldn't let me in the area. So.
And did they bust it open?
Yeah, that was the door to the storage room that everyone has talked about. This, it's been widely reported.
Yes.
But yeah, that's ultimately what they did.
And the storage room was where the documents were, or at least the largest number of documents, correct?
According to what the FBI and Department of Justice has reported, yes. I mean, I wasn't there to see it, so I can't confirm that. But based on the papers that they filed in court, yes, that's true.
And where, just roughly where, without going into a great description of Mar-a-Lago, which is a complicated place, we both know. Where is it? In the basement? Main floor?
It's pretty much in the basement. Mar-a-Lago is kind of funny how on one side it's the main floor, and then if you go around the back side, it's below. So it depends on how you enter, whether it's the first or second floor. But yeah, it's basically underneath the main area.
And it was pretty obvious. It's not like a dungeon. It's not hidden away behind numerous doors, and it's fairly, I guess maybe the better way to ask it, it's fairly accessible.
Depending on who you are. I mean, guests certainly wouldn't have access to it. Certain members of staff, maybe, but of course it's locked. And my understanding anyway was that only one person had the key. So I wouldn't say it's easily accessible.
Okay.
But.
And had you ever been in there?
Just for the June 3rd meeting. Yeah.
So you got to see it when they got to see it.
Correct.
And how much of it did they take?
Well, they didn't. At that point, the only thing I could see was what was handed off, and it was all wrapped and sealed, and so I couldn't see anything, relating to like what it was. But it looked like it was about the size of a Redwell that was turned over at that point. One, yes.
How many were there?
I don't know. I didn't go through the boxes, so and. It's a storage room. And so there were clothes in there, there were shoes, there were papers. So I don't know what percentage of the boxes had clothes in it versus paper. So I can't really estimate that. But the storage room wasn't huge. I mean, I didn't think it had that much in it. It was maybe 10 feet by 15 feet, a typical closet.
Did they leave things behind?
Did the FBI leave? Oh, yeah. Yeah. They didn't take everything.
Including records?
I don't know. I haven't been there after the raid, but I don't believe they took everything.
So where does the case stand now in terms of a civil case, criminal case, administrative case? What is it? What is it now? I think the American people with all the other things that happened, are kind of confused as to what this is now.
Yeah, it is. It is a bit confusing. It's not my case, so I don't want to, profess to know all the ins and outs of.
Probably better. You can talk to us more freely with it, but yeah.
Yeah. So, well, the district judge here in Florida that had appointed the special master, of course, that went up to the 11th Circuit, and
the judge's name is
Aline Cannon, right?
And the special master was Barbara Jones.
It could be. To be honest, I wasn't.
Okay.
I tried to stay out of it because I didn't want to be involved. It's not my case, and I technically was a witness for it. So, but the 11th Circuit overturned her decision, basically saying she erred in appointing the special master. So I believe it was this week or last week, that that case closed, and they basically canceled the special master, dismissed the special master, for lack of a better word. So it's not open at the moment, and we gotta. I don't know what they're going to do with it. I don't know to what end DOJ is trying to achieve with this, because I don't think there's any evidence of a crime anywhere. But that's up to DOJ to make that call. So we'll see what they try to do.
Now, you put this in the context of all of the other things you have been involved in. It really, let's say, just as a lawyer, let's take out the prior history, which of course you're also well aware of as a reporter and government employee. How does this fit in? The offensive, let's call it the offensive against Donald Trump, going on by the government. I mean, we've got a number of actions, pending actions, threatened actions. How does this ultimately, do you think, get resolved in that group of things?
I don't know. I'm really curious to see how it gets resolved, because it has never made any sense to me. As I said, it's not my case. They're handling it in DC, but the bits and pieces that I've been involved don't make sense to me. I don't understand why it's playing out the way that it is when you have very similar, if not worse, actions on the part of prior presidents that have done the same thing with the information that they took from the White House, and yet there's been no interest in them. So it appears to me, by all accounts, to be a very partisan political witch hunt, to use President Trump's words. I mean, we saw this with the Mueller investigation, and now they've appointed this special prosecutor to look into January 6th and look into this NARA case. They've been trying very, very aggressively for 7 years now to take down Donald Trump. I don't see them suddenly becoming successful at that, but I don't know what they're doing, to be honest. I mean, I don't see any evidence of a crime. I don't see any reason to appoint a special master in the NARA records case. I mean, we've seen reports where the FBI or Department of Justice has acknowledged that there doesn't appear to be it's not like Donald Trump is selling secrets to the Russians. I mean, there's no illicit activity on the part of the documents that were at Mar-a-Lago. So honestly, I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
So presidents in the past, almost, not to say uniformly, but my goodness, going back to Ulysses S. Grant, right? Memos, biographies, autobiographies, commentaries. They publish love letters to their wives. They write histories of wars. And I'm certain in the course of that, over the years, they've had large numbers of government documents at home, in their library, in their possession. Was there any indication that you know of that President Trump was doing something that would destroy these records, change these records, alter them, or let's say like Hillary Clinton smashed up 33,000 emails, was going to get rid of them?
No, I have no information or no indication, and absolutely zero reason to believe that anything like that was occurring.
Okay, let's go to the bigger picture now, since your involvement with the president is on a broad scale. How does this, as a friend of his, I'm not asking this for myself, I'm asking it for the wider audience. How does this affect him?
He is incredible. He never ceases to amaze me with his endurance and his ability to withstand attacks and pressure. I mean, he handles pressure better than anybody I'm aware of, whether I know them personally or witness through stories through the media. He's so resilient. He's in great spirits. I think he's doing very well, and you would never know that he has endured what he has endured at the hands of political opposition. But he's great.
So here we are now in the new political season. Early, we're already in the 2024 election. We just finished 2022. There's the will Donald Trump run? Will Joe Biden run? Is the big question overarching both political parties. So, as a person that's within the orbit of people that gets to talk to him regularly, is he running?
Yes, he is. We're all excited about it. And he had a great announcement. And I'm excited for his campaign to really get underway after the holidays. And I think it's going to be a really good campaign, a really fun season for us to go out. We love, being out with the people all across the country. His rallies are always exciting. I love being part of that. So yes, he is running. He intends to win, and I think he will.
So how would you, as a person who is in an interesting position, you have what I would call very minute knowledge and big picture knowledge. So you have very minute knowledge to the extent that you participated in this, the recent events. People might remember your heavy involvement in Arizona, both when you were with us, the investigation of Arizona for the Trump legal team, and then your coverage of it for how long? It seemed to me you covered that for a long time.
Oh, months.
I watched you on television doing excellent work, and also then being contradicted to the extent that you were covered on the major networks. I'd get real excited and say to Maria, "Oh, they're going to have Christina on. She got on the major network," and then you said, X number of documents were discovered, and they would basically say they weren't discovered. I mean, it was ridiculous coverage. But from looking at all of that, how are those allegations going? I mean, he one of the things held against him, would have to say by the left and by the rhinos, is he harps on the 2022 election quite a bit. Now, how do you does that hurt him? And then second, does he have much of a choice but to harp on it, given what he and I and you would regard as a tremendous injustice, even though other people think of it as a conspiracy theory?
Right. Well, he's right. When he talks about the 2020 election, he's correct, and he's correct with the problems. I do think he's looking ahead. To the extent that he's been speaking publicly, he's really been talking about the future. And I think that's what people are concerned about. The future does include cleaning up our elections, because we have to, in order to make sure that it's the people, that the American people are the ones choosing their leaders and choosing those who work in our government. So it's all encompassing. We have to continue to clean up what occurred in 2020. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it play out in Arizona now. The work that you and I did in 2020 was very, very difficult. We didn't have a lot of access. We had the mainstream media who wanted to shut us down and say that we were crazy and say that we were, conspiracy theorists, and that 2020 was the most secure election in U.S. history. But yet, we've done enough work over the last couple of years that now you look at Arizona. And Rasmussen did a poll that over 70% of likely voters in Arizona, not Republicans, not MAGA patriots, likely voters, to include Democrats, over 70% believe that the election in Arizona was rigged. The 2022 election in Arizona was rigged. So we've come a long way. And it's hard at this point for the media. I don't know if you've noticed, but we haven't been hearing, 2022 was the most secure election in U.S. history. We haven't been hearing that narrative. And so I take that as a win. It means the work that we did in 2020 was somewhat successful, because they can't continue that narrative because it's blatantly, obviously not true. So I think we have had some success. We need to continue to work on it. I think the lawsuits filed by Carrie Lake's team, and then recently, just last night, Senator Sonny Borelli in Mojave County filed another lawsuit. I think those are great actions, not just for the lawsuits themselves. We know courts tend to shy away from handling this, so I don't know what the courts are going to do with it, but the cases themselves are solid. They're very, very good. And I'm hoping that the public is aware of the cases and understanding what's going on in them, because just the case itself is helping raise awareness.
We're going to take a short break, and we're going to be right back for our conclusion. When you're talking to Christina Bobb, how can you not think of Patriot Mobile? This is a mobile patriot. Christina Bobb, Marine, worked for President Trump, worked as an investigative reporter to dig out treachery and treason and all the stuff that was going on and trying to depose a sitting president. Wow. There's a lady, woman, soldier, journalist in the best sense, political, not candidate, but political worker. Exceptional lady. Well, PatriotMobile.com has been behind a lot of our victories as conservatives. Our victory to vindicate life, and our victory so that we can have some scope and protection for our ability to protect ourselves with guns, and our victories on due process, some of which still have to be gained. And the thing about Patriot Mobile is that you'll be able to get through Patriot Mobile exactly the same phone service you have right now in terms of quality outreach, ability to reach people, safety, security, except you'll be getting it from a group of people who are like you, a group of people who are using some of the proceeds from the profits that they make to fight the battle of free speech, to fight the battle of freedom of religion, to fight the other battles that are of critical importance to us in dealing with the express train to communism that we are being taken on right now. So go to patriotmobile.com/Rudy and take a look at the deals that are there for you and the special deals when you do /Rudy, and particularly for veterans and for first responders. Special bargains, special deals, special consideration for the people who are special. PatriotMobile.com/RUDY, Rudy, okay? Don't forget. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for our interview with Christina Bobb, who has really extraordinarily comprehensive knowledge of what went on both in the 2020 election, which we've spoken about, and the one that I certainly not more important, but maybe more important in the sense that it might still be going on, the 2022 election. So the 2022 election in Arizona, it's almost as if you didn't cheat, you wanted to make it look like you did. If I were going to make people suspicious, I would say, let's take a long time to count the ballots and set rules and processes to do that. When you consider that several months earlier this year, France counted all the ballots in the entire country of France in about 10 or 11 hours. The state of New York, a Democratic state, and not exactly the one with the most integrity, and Florida, a Republican state, even bigger than New York, more voters, counted their ballots, all of them, within 10 hours, maybe 11, even with one or two elections here or there as disputed elections. But the overall vote was in and ready for a recount, if you wanted it, by 2 a.m. That also is true of 45 of the 50 states. So then, it isn't just Arizona, but Georgia then stood out. But Arizona stands out as day after day of not knowing who won, looking an awful lot like 2020. with either very sinister people or very, very correct people saying it's not going to be over until the Democrat wins, which is the attitude that creates. Why did it take so long? And are they really bold enough in the light of all the things that came out in 2020 and the specific focus on Arizona to try any form of the same thing again?
I think that's exactly what they're doing. And
Oh
they're
my.
doing it. I mean, yes, they needed 3 extra weeks because they needed to get more Democrat ballots because Republican voters turned out on election day and they didn't know how many they needed to change the outcome of the election. They needed the 3 weeks to do it. Or, well, it wasn't quite 3 weeks. It was less than that. But they needed the extra how many ever days a week to come up with the extra ballots and to actually try to manufacture this win for Katie Hobbs, which they've done. I think it's glaringly obvious that it's flawed with everything that was brought out in Carrie Lake's lawsuit, as well as this Mojave lawsuit. I mean, they've got whistleblowers from the ballot printing company that's saying we have almost 300,000 ballots that were illegally asserted back into the counting process at the ballot printing level. I mean, there's an actual whistleblower that claims that. And then you have another whistleblower from the company that audits not audits, but validates the machines before the election to make sure that the machines are functioning properly, who's been doing it for 9 years, and came forward and said the malfunction that occurred on election day in Arizona had to have been an intentional action because those machines were checked and cleared at the weekend before the election. They passed all their checks. They were fine. They were ready to go. And the error that occurred was that they were reading the wrong ballot. The ballot that people filled out their votes on wouldn't go through the machine because the machine was looking for a different type of ballot. That wouldn't have occurred if it passed its test the day before. So in order for that error to happen, it had to be somebody intentionally going in and changing the settings to confuse the machine so it didn't know what it was looking for, so it wouldn't read these ballots and all of these ballots would get dumped, which is what ended up happening. So you've got intentional malfeasance, you've got what appears to be incompetence at best, and then you've got the Secretary of State threatening counties saying, you better certify me as the winner or I'm going to throw you in jail. I mean, this is the United States of America. We don't do that. We make sure that our elections are free and fair. And the Democrats don't want that. I think there's many, many signs of election cheating in both Carrie Lake's lawsuit and this Mojave lawsuit. And I hope that the courts have the guts to do the right thing. I don't know what's going to come out of it, but at the very least, we're continuing to clean it out no matter what happens.
Does this apply also to the Senate race? Or is it exclusively the governor's race?
It also applies to the Senate. It applies to the entire ballot on every ballot in the state. And it's Carrie Lake is the one that's contesting it at this moment. So she's the one that's putting that forward. So her contest is specific to her race. But these errors would have occurred for every single race on the ballot.
And her opponent, Hobbs, is theoretically the prime government official in charge of the counting.
Not just theoretically, like actually.
Right. Yeah. Literally and figuratively would be the better way to say that. And at no point was there any attempt to recuse herself or find someone else to do this or...
No, not only was she not recusing herself, but we've got emails showing that she was also collaborating with Twitter to censor political speech that she did not disclose to the public. So she's a candidate and she's not disclosing to the public that at least in the past, she had censored political speech. She likely continued to censor political speech as the Secretary of State who was trying to become the governor, and she never disclosed it to the public. Not only did she not disclose it to the public, but Stephen Richer, the Maricopa County recorder, was also collaborating with Twitter as well as CISA, a federal agency. So you've got the federal government collaborating with state government to censor political speech and to change the outcome of the election. And nobody disclosed any of it to the people of Arizona.
So what are the chances that this will result? Right now, it's in the district court. Is it in the federal district court or the state court?
It's in state court right now.
And what are the chances this will emerge with some kind of a finding of I asked that question naively. I shouldn't, because as
you know it better than anybody.
I'm anything but naive.
No, it is a good question. And the way that I have said it to other people who have asked, I say the facts are on Kari Lake's side. The law is on Kari Lake's side.
Too bad.
The courts might not be. I don't know. And so I think if the trial courts don't honor the law and don't actually allow this to play out and get to a trial, I think the Arizona Supreme Court, my hope is that the Arizona Supreme Court would do the right thing and at least give Kari her day in court, let this go to trial, and let's see what the people of Arizona think.
Well, let's hope that one of these cases gets through the judicial process in a way that is normal, because the cases of 2020 did not follow a normal process, as you and I know as litigators. Almost always, if you bring a preliminary injunction, you get a hearing. None of the witnesses were given a hearing, for good reason, because they didn't want the public to know that the allegations that are being made do not come from Christina Bobb or Rudy Giuliani or Donald Trump or any of our, it comes from human beings who've given us that. And we're acting as lawyers. If they ever knew how many human beings, it would have created a real consternation. So same thing here. The allegations are coming from the people who ran the election, and it's not being heard. So we're going to have to hope we get the exceptional good judge, and the judge follows the law.
I hope so. That, I don't know what's going to come of it, but I know the people of Arizona are really upset. They're upset, and they know that their election was stolen from them, Democrats and Republicans. They're aware. And if the courts don't honor this case, I think they're going to have a real problem on their hands, because everybody in the state knows that they're corrupt.
Is there a great deal of agreement in Arizona on this case? I mean, is it an issue where a definable majority of people feel that something was wrong and something has to be done about it?
Well, that's the sense that I get. But the only objective data I can look at is the Rasmussen poll that says 70 or 72% of Arizona voters believe that the election was rigged and that it wasn't fair. Not, like I said, not Republicans.
The Arizona election?
Yes.
And the Arizona election for governor?
Correct. Well, I don't think the question was that specific. I think it was the election.
The Arizona election, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the only objective data that I can look at. But yes, the sense that I get is people are aware that there's a problem in Arizona and that this was not legitimate.
Well, this has been very, very interesting, Christina. We'll have you back, particularly as both of them move along. Even though you're not involved in the Arizona case, you probably have the best ability from all the different skills that you have to describe it in a way that's understandable. You did throughout that investigation. And also, pretty soon the president's campaign will be heating up. And win, lose, or draw, there's nothing more exciting than a Donald Trump campaign.
Nothing more exciting. It's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, God bless you.
Thank you very much. And if I could just mention, I do have a book coming out if anyone's interested in learning more about what actually happened in 2020. Stealing Your Vote, The Inside Story of the 2020 Election and What It Means for 2024 is available for pre-order on Amazon. And you can also get a copy, and it'll be available in January. And it stars Rudy Giuliani.
You know why?
You know why I have 4 fingers up?
Why?
Because I've now read 4 chapters.
Oh, you've read 4 chapters. Fantastic.
And I skimmed the last chapter.
Well, I hope you like it. And
I love it.
It's got your
a
story
great book.
in it.
It's a great book. Yes, it tells the story quite accurately, but it tells it, and this, I think, will make it stand out above a lot of other books, frankly. It's a much more, like you were on TV today. People who watched you and I think found that what you said is understandable and easy to follow, and it's written in a way that you want to read it. So I believe it'll be a very successful book personally, which is good for you, but also I think it'll be a very important part of pushing ahead the narrative, because I mean, a good deal of our motivation, and I think I can speak for you here, is we really feel a terrible obligation to get the facts out because we have them and we don't want to die with them. We want people to know them because this has to stop. It has to stop while we don't have a democracy left. And that's not an exaggeration. And Christina is one of the few people that, one, knows it because she investigated it. Two, has the courage to speak up about it because she could be making an awful lot of money at an awful lot of television stations if she would just forget what she knows. And number three, has a gift for being able to describe it orally and in writing. So we need you, Christina.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I hope the readers see themselves in the book. I want them to feel like they can identify where they belong in the story and then get involved and go make it happen in your community.
Well, as soon as it comes out, we're going to put it on the podcast. We're going to put it on the live stream. We're going to make it easy for them to get it through. You can get it a lot of ways. I'm not even suggesting you get it through us. But if you can't get any other way, it'll be right here and you'll be able to get it. And I will be finished with it probably before Christmas. And if you don't mind, I'll review it way before it comes out. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. I love it.
And again, it's out when?
It officially is in print January 24th.
So it's coming up. The name is?
Stealing Your Vote, the inside story of the 2020 election and what it means for 2024.
Easy to remember, right? Stealing Your Vote, 2024. Okay, thank you very much, Christina. And thank you for all of your service to our great country. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, sir. Merry Christmas.
Well, wasn't that interesting? And you worry about America, and we have people like Christina Bobb to help us. Brave Marine, brave physically, and brave intellectually, and brave emotionally, and just burning with love for America. Wow. Makes Christmas feel better, doesn't it? And the book, look, here's what I do when a friend writes a book and it stinks. I just don't talk about it. I'm not going to go take a friend's book and say, stink, stink, stink. Won't do it. Might do it with somebody else. But you'll never hear me talk about it. I'm not going to lie about a book. Too important. And there are too many to read, and you have too little time to read it. This is one. Within the next year, you're going to read this book. So you might as well get it first. And be like when I was a little boy and they used to sell FBI badges. Be the first one on your block to have it. Then you can be the one that goes in the barbershop or the beauty shop and you can say, I read Christina Bobb's book and it says, and they'll think you're really smart. And you will be if you do that. So get the book, okay? God bless you. And we'll be back in a moment for a few concluding thoughts. Thank you. So I had to rush out here today to do the podcast with Christina. And I hate to keep her late because she works for President Trump and she's working on, she's working about 90 different things that could bust things open and they're really creative. So I forgot my slippers and I came out without my slippers on. And I don't know if you see my feet moving. The floor is cold. So toss them over. One, okay. Two, all right. See that? All kinds of linings here. You can go out with them. You can go inside with them. And most important, the minute I put these on my feet, when I get up and we end this podcast and I have to go walking around the house, I'm not going to freeze. mypillow.com/Rudy. This is just one pair. There are so many others. These are my favorite. A couple others we'll show you next week that are even better, I think. But I'd go with this one for Christmas. I just think they'd be nice. The kids will like you walking out in these. And then if you have to go outside to throw some of the packaging out or to show the kids Santa's footsteps, you can wear this. Eh? All right? mypillow.com and help our friend Mike. They're torturing that guy, and he is a patriot par excellence. He's fighting for you. Get him. mypillow.com/Rudy, and you'll get your special deals. God bless you, and Merry Christmas.